Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Women's Network of MBAF's 2020 annual event. My name is Patricia Munoz. I'm a senior manager in the audit department, a member of the executive committee of the Women's Network of MBAF, and your host for today's event. We're very excited about today's program, Conversations with Leaders Changing the Face of Business. We have an amazing panel of experts who will be discussing the challenges faced by many entrepreneurs and business owners during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Today's event is a very special one. For the first time in our network's history, we're hosting a virtual event where all our members across the country are able to attend, and with a panel of all female leaders. We hope you're excited as we are. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator, Marta Alfonso, who will lead today's panel discussion. Marta is a principal in charge of the Litigation Support Division at MBAF and the president of the Women's Network of MBAF. With a strong background in litigation consulting, forensic accounting, solvency and bankruptcy, turnarounds, and financial management, Marta offers extensive financial experience and a deep understanding of the critical financial litigation issues. Trained as both an accountant and an attorney, she has worked in a range of consulting and in-house corporate roles for over 35 years. Welcome, Marta. Oh, Marta, you're on mute.
Thank you. I was talking passionately to myself. So thank you so much, Patty. And thanks to everyone who's joining us today. We're really excited about today's event, and we look forward to hearing from everybody on this power panel. Before we begin, I'd like to mention a few housekeeping rules. As we move in our conversations, if you have questions you'd like to ask, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom to submit them, and we'll try to address them if time permits. We are also offering CPE credit for this event, so please make sure you stay on for the full hour to receive the credit. And finally, we're going to be recording today's session, and we'll be providing a link to the recording after the event. So now I have the honor to introduce each one of our distinguished panelists. The first one is Christine Barney. She's the CEO and managing partner of RBB Communications, a 5-time National Agency of the Year award winner. RBB is a leading integrated communications agency that offers media solutions, digital marketing, influencer engagement, corporate communications, among other services. Christine has developed multifaceted marketing communications programs for a variety of brands, including DHL Express, my favorite, M&M's, and Thomson Reuters. She is the author of the Breakout Brand Strategy, an evolutionary approach to creating consumer passion, and her firm, with offices in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Los Angeles, and New York, is known as the champion of breakout brands. Welcome, Christine. Next is Adrian Calvo, who is a chef, author, TV personality, and restaurateur. She is the founder of several beloved Miami establishments, some that I've been to that are really delicious, including Chef Adrian's Vineyard Restaurant, which has been named one of the U.S.'s most unique restaurants by Zagat, as well as one of the 17 most important restaurants in Miami by the Thrill List. She's published 6 cookbooks, and her dishes have been featured in publications such as Gourmet and Bon Appetit. She has received multiple awards and recognitions, including Best Chef in Miami in the New Times, Top 100 Celebrity Chefs by the Floodable Network, Best Chef by the Floridian Awards from TMG Entertainment, 40 Under 40 by the South Florida Business Journal, and others. Chef Calvo is leading the way as one of the country's top female chefs and operators. Welcome, Adrian.
Thank you.
Adrian Dickinson is the president and publisher of the South Florida Business Journal. Her leadership and drive to deliver breaking news and in-depth business stories has resulted in multiple industry awards to the South Florida Business Journal's editorial and design teams. Her passion for recognizing and elevating the achievements of women in business have led to the creation of the Women's Leadership Group. This invitation-only women's membership organization allows CEOs, presidents, and business owners the opportunity to share their successes, frustrations, and ideas with other women of similar position in a setting of support and confidentiality. Melanie, we're glad you're here. Joanne Lee is the Dean, Professor of Finance, and Writer Eminent Scholar Chair at the Florida International University College of Business. As Dean, she leads the college's Landon Undergraduate School and Champion Graduate School, as well as its executive education, global learning, and small business development programs. Prior to joining FIU, she served as the Dean of Rajswant College of Business at the Wright State University, where she developed innovative programs designed to accelerate the college's role in economic and workforce development, including the Institution for Innovation and Entrepreneurship to promote student participation in commercialization and tech transfer, and the Right Venture, a Shark Tank lookalike that allowed students to pitch upstart ideas to gain financial backing. She has also been recognized by the Dayton Business Journal as one of Dayton's Power 50 Women and was named one of 100 Dayton Women Influencers by the Lean In chapter of Dayton. We're glad to have you here, Joanne. Joanna Mccola is the CEO and co-founder of WinCode Academy, a leading technical school dedicated to training top technology talent through best-in-class accelerated and immersive programs. WinCode's innovative curriculum prepares students to compete in the national job arena, which is demonstrated by its 93% job placement rate, 800 plus technology graduates, and 400 plus hiring partners. Joanna was selected as Endeavor Entrepreneur in June 2015, joining a prestigious network of only the most select high-impact entrepreneurs around the globe. She's also an entrepreneur in residence for Babson College WinLab, a founding member of the Miami chapter of the Female Founder Collective, sits on the contract advisory board of Emerge Americas, and is an ambassador for Amita Ventures. She was recently selected as the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce Female Leader in Technology and was a finalist for Entrepreneur of the Year. She was also awarded the 40 Under 40 recognition as well as Influential Business Leader by the South Florida Business Journal. We're glad to have you, Joanna. As you can see, Power Panel is probably an understatement. It's more like the electrifying panel that we're going to have today, so I'm very, very excited. So now that you've met all these wonderful panelists, let's get the discussion started. So the first thing we'd like to do to get the discussion started is to ask the participants to answer the poll question that's going to pop up in the screen to choose the topic most of interest with which we will begin our discussion. So which one should we address first? Crisis management and opportunities, entrepreneurship and career advancement, proactive communications, community involvement, or safety in the workplace? So please vote so we can decide where we're starting. So we'll give you one more second to cast your vote, and then I'm going to ask Nicole to come back and give us the results. Okay, so it looks like you want to start with entrepreneurship and career advancement. So that's where we're going to start. I think the first question in entrepreneurship and career advancement, and I'm going to pose this to all of you as the opening question so that each one of you can respond, because I think it's really an important question, which is, how do you develop emotional resilience as a leader and an entrepreneur in the face of the uncertainty that we're living in today? So, Chef Adrian, do you want to start off the discussion?
Oh, I'd love to. First, I'd love to say that it's amazing to be here, and I'm actually like shell shocked at like this roster of powerful women. So thanks for the opportunity. Speaking on emotional resilience in a time like this is actually I'm really happy that this is one of the questions, because normally this bears a ton of weight for everybody. But being an entrepreneur and being in business in these trying times is extra hard. And then particularly for restaurants, for example, you're always dealing with critics. You're always dealing with people rating you. I mean, you know, look at Yelp, you know, they build you up, they tear you down. And at this time when we're struggling to survive, we're barely making it, and we're hoping to come out the other side, you know, winning. But imagine then it's even tougher, because you're trying to please people. You're hanging in there to try to please them, and you have to find that fight within you to try to keep going every single day and find that joy, find that spark, find that motivation to continue to put out the best of you, you know, to stay in business. And I don't know if we have a secret recipe for that, but I do know that it's a very important part of staying in business normally, and even more so now through this pandemic. I think it's just woven in your veins. I think that people that are in this, like these powerful women here in this conversation, I want to say we're born with it. And if we're not born with it, something happened in our life that makes us find that warrior, that gladiator in all of us, to continue to find that strength every day, to be like, yes, I want to serve people, or I want to put out a product out into the world that wasn't there. And I think the world needs it. So, you know, I think it's very important, and I think it's finding that battle within you.
Thank you so much, Joanna.
Yeah, I've got to say, it's great to be here on this panel. I feel like a participant. I'm so excited to learn from everyone here. Yeah, I can, I mean, I spend a lot of time talking about what it means to be an entrepreneur and a founder. And I will say it's a roller coaster. The highs are so high, the lows can be so low. And as an entrepreneur, it's really hard to separate identity and business. They are one and the same. And so with that comes a lot of pressure. It's hard not to take everything personally, because for me, my identity is so intertwined. And in normal circumstances, being an entrepreneur, I just described a roller coaster of wonder and challenges. So in a time like a pandemic, like now, you know, I feel like the challenge is 10x at times. I do feel, and I know we're going to talk about it today, there's been silver linings to this, and a lot of opportunities have come from it. But it is a constant battle as an entrepreneur of balancing your personal goals, team goals, business goals, and now you're doing that with the addition of a pandemic. So I think if there's a will, there's a way. Entrepreneurs will things into existence, and then we go the next level, which is we also have to will it into being successful. So you know, like most entrepreneurs are pretty persistent, don't give up easily. And the pandemic has just, you know, just like Adrianne was saying, like really brought that out in us. Maybe we were born with it. This is helping us develop it further. It's been a journey for sure. And I'm looking forward to talking more about, you know, what the benefits have been, but also how we've navigated the challenges.
Thank you so much, Christine.
It's funny what Johanna just said. You know, I have an expression that I often say, which is that I'm on an emotional roller coaster all the time, and that's okay. Because as an entrepreneur, there are these ups and downs, and you could be happily working on your computer and get an email that suddenly shows a project is about to tank, and that means you could lose a whole project. And or you could be looking at an email thinking, oh my God, I'm off my budget projections 25%. And the phone rings and it's an old client saying, I can't live without you. I have $250,000 to spend and we have to start tomorrow. And you go from these highs and lows. That's the business roller coaster. But it's also emotional states kind of work in general. You know, COVID aside, we're all minutes away from getting unexpected good or bad news. And how we react to that news is really all we can control. And Joanna said something that was interesting to me, which is it's very pushed in our society to look for the silver lining, to you know, find the bright side. Don't let bad news overwhelm you, and there is no crying in the workplace. And I think that while, you know, it's certainly important to understand the power of being optimistic, no one can be positive all the time. And you have to recognize that it's not useful or healthy to deny some of the negative emotions. Accepting that some days you're just going to be unhappy or cranky. You know, I struggle with this all the time. And I think, okay, is it okay that tonight I not work and sit in my pajamas, watch my Hallmark movies and eat chocolate chip cookie dough for dinner? You know, I think that giving yourself that permission to accept that all emotions are useful is important. We've built a whole marketing theory around the fact that it's emotional connections that actually make people to ask for help or buy something. I'm afraid of dying, so I take my cholesterol drugs. I just did all this exercise, so I want to buy new clothes to show off my body. You know, there's all those reasons. So I think there's no distinction in the value of positive versus negative emotions. They shouldn't be suppressed. I say embrace the roller coaster and whatever emotions come your way. And if you think about it that way, I think you're more confident about accepting those emotions and working through them.
Thank you. Joanne?
Thank you very much. First, I want to say thank you to the Women Network and MBAF. Very honored and humble to serve alongside these strong women. And interestingly, as a business dean, I have two entrepreneurial parents. And growing up with them make me understand the roller coaster that Adrian, you know, Joanna and Christine were just talking about. That may mean days that you have to sweep the floor, you know, feed your employee, worry about payroll. And I think growing up with them actually make me recognize that I am not your traditional academician because I understand the entrepreneurial aspect of business school, right? And I want to touch base on what Adrian was talking about. It's kind of something in you. It's not something that we can train you. We may be able to train you with all the skill set, teaching you how to manage your working capital, how to deal with your HR issue, maybe even talk about marketing analytics, all kind of thing. But it's really something in you. I remember a few weeks ago, I served another panel. They were asking entrepreneurship. And I want to say this. They said, is it a good time to start a business? It's never a good time to start a business. Just like, is it a good time to have a baby? Never have a good time to have a baby, but you will still have the baby. And if it's in you, you have to do it. And this is something that you can only fulfill by taking action. And I think the emotional aspect of being an entrepreneur is very important, like what Christine was talking about, how to create that headspace that you can balance your act. It's a thrill to be an entrepreneur, right? Because in any moment, it could fold. So in any moment, you're gonna you're sleeping with it, you're thinking about it, but at the same time, it's also important to create that kind of network, to have someone that can talk to have a business school you can reach out. Can I talk with some of my students, some of your professor? I think these will be a good network for a community to develop a healthy economy. And I think in Miami, right here in Miami, we do have this opportunity. And we do through our Small Business Development Center and provide a lot of free service to entrepreneurs and local business in the area. Our goal is very simple. We know that a strong economy rests with entrepreneurs, small businesses. If they succeed, so will the economy. So this is something that I think as an entrepreneur, you have to think about it. Don't just go and hit your head on the wall and say that, what can I do next? Reach out to the network because we do want you to be successful because your success directly translates into the success of the community.
Thank you so much, Joanne. Finally, Melanie.
Thank you, Marta, and I am really happy that you guys are putting this together, MBAF and the Women's Network. It's very much appreciated, I know, by everyone. So with that, I'm going to agree a lot with what they're saying, although I will say Chef Adrian and Dean Lee, I definitely agree it's something within you, for sure. I'm going to say to Christine and Joanna about the roller coaster. Roller coaster like on a regular day, you know, everything's roller coaster. I'm likening this to more of conquering like a double black diamond ski slope. We're sitting here, right? They're difficult. They're ungroomed. They got moguls. They've got bumps. You know, if a ski instructor was teaching us, you know, how to master this, I think they would tell us that it's fear as much as a lack of skill that holds us back. And uncertainty, you know, certainly doesn't help in these things, right? So you're kind of standing at the top of a run and you're thinking, what's going to happen to me, which is reasonable, you know, not that I can do double diamonds, I can't. But I think that the uncertainty just triggers a lot of tension and, you know, infinitely it's more difficult to get down the mountain when you're, you know, stressed and tense about it. So I think right now, you know, I think we're kind of partially getting down that, you know, slope. And I kind of look at it where it's intimidating, but I'm watching these moguls. When you're skiing moguls, you're going to look at the next one, not the one you're currently in. And then you look at the next one, then you look at the next one. So I kind of just think you keep moving forward, get your skis pointed down, get that momentum for stability. And, you know, one of the things that I personally do that I think helps with my resilience and like that is really, I just try to focus on the things I can control, which I think is so important, instead of focusing on the things that you can't, which goes to the, you know, frame of mind thinking. So. You're on mute, Marta.
I apologize. I thought it was taken off. Thank you so much. I know that all those insights will be really valuable to everybody as they're going through their coming days in this environment. Now we're going to talk a little bit more directly on the topic of entrepreneurship, which is, you know, we have seen since the pandemic that more than 70% of the startups have had to terminate full-time employee contracts. In your opinion, how will the pandemic affect the perception of entrepreneurship, and what set of skills that are different, if any, will entrepreneurs need to possess to survive this? So maybe Joanne, you want to start from the perspective of education.
So in a basic fundamental business education, our goal is to create system thinker, meaning that we're not training students just in one narrow discipline. They're expected to get out, graduate, regardless of the degree. They will understand a little bit about business law, finance, accounting, marketing, technology, international, you know, spectrum. But I think one of the things that is important that in the hardcore skill of an entrepreneur, some entrepreneur may possess a very good, you know, EQ. They just manage people very well, right? And I know that as a startup, it's really tough to have people surrounding you that can complement your skill set. So all of a sudden you're challenging yourself. Okay, maybe I'm really good with human management, right? HR management, but I'm not good with number, what I'm gonna do. So as an entrepreneur, you have to be very agile to take on, okay, I'm gonna be a little bit of a marketing expert. I gotta be really good in reading my financial statement. So this is perhaps one of the most challenging thing of a startup entrepreneur, when he or she does not have the working capital to move around. But I think perhaps arguably the most important element is to have the will, like what Christina was talking about, right? To prevail, because the world expects that from you, right? Under the world of uncertainty, you must prevail. And the perseverance to overcome difficulty. And that may mean you're gonna work 80 hours a week, right? Unlike other human beings. I have heard so many entrepreneurs say that, yeah, when I first started it was rough. I have to sleep on my own couch. I have to second mortgage my place. But this is something that distinguishes one to be an entrepreneur and not to be one. So I think from the business education viewpoint, we present all the hardcore skill set for a candidate, but it's really up to the candidate to really expand on, if I have to wear multiple hats, do I have the courage to do so? Do I have the resilience to succeed? So kudos to all the entrepreneurs on this panel. And I think it's a very difficult balancing job, but you guys are doing wonderfully.
Christine, would you like to comment on this point?
Add that maybe this is a little contrarian, but I don't think that the COVID-19 pandemic will have any effect on entrepreneurial will. I think that entrepreneurs will actually see opportunities. We've seen bumps after the 2008 crash where people see ideas or they get laid off, and that gives them the push to say, you know what, I'm not going to go work for someone else. I'm going to do it myself. So I actually think it will be a little bit of wind under the wings of some entrepreneurs. I don't think it's any easier, clearly. It certainly might be harder, especially to get funding. But I think that it will be a very inspiration for people who think that they want to do something different. Now is the time.
Would anybody else like to comment on this question?
Yeah, I would love to add on what Christine said. I totally agree with what you were saying. I actually, you know, looking back, there's been a lot of great articles written about downturns and crisis, like leading to the birth of some amazing technology companies that we all use today. There's a long list of them. So I think like being in a situation like we are right now is actually only going to further put wind beneath the wings of creativity. And you guys talked about, you know, that will and being a certain type of person. I think those people are going to be very motivated by this. In a way, there might be a greater barrier to entry for being an entrepreneur because raising capital might be a little bit more challenging, or you might be in a worse financial situation right now. But I actually see the barrier as being lower because people have a little bit more time and ability to really, they have time to think about, oh, I've always wanted to do this thing. Now is the time. And, you know, obviously I'm biased being in the tech world, but I will say that, you know, we all have been exposed and immersed in like a digital way of life and seeing the role that technology really is playing in our day-to-day lives. So I also feel that, you know, people who are entrepreneurial driven, if they're able to really power it, particularly with technology and a tech play, you know, there's simple things like you can basically, you have a global pool of talent now. If you believe in work from home and remote hiring, you can build anywhere at any time. So I think there's a lot of really great opportunity. And I think we're gonna, once again, like history has shown, see some great things emerge from this, particularly from the entrepreneurs.
I'd love to share something. As far as like the people are saying the pandemic is the death of the restaurant industry. They're saying they're closing by the minute. The restaurant industry will never be the same. But it shows that people are social creatures, and they love going out to eat and sharing special moments out. And just because they want to go out to eat, or the very simple fact that that's built in us, it's human nature. And now the world of tech with food has never been more together and more vital for the sustainability of the restaurant industry. People are on their phones, they're glued to their screens, and they're watching what chefs are doing. And it's become very, very important, that messaging through tech. And that's, I think it's going to rely heavily on the survival of the restaurant industry long term.
And I will just add, because I agree with what everybody's saying, don't have much more to add, but I will say that I've always noticed through the recessions and through downturns, great company, you know, it gives great ideas, it sparks new innovation. And, you know, sometimes what one misery is to somebody is another person's gain. And you see a lot of businesses come out of these and ideas. So it does give some opportunity, but of course to Christine and everyone's point, I think an entrepreneur has a certain qualities about them that don't change whether there's COVID or not. It's going to be there. So
I think those are all excellent points. Excellent points. From your ladies' perspective, what advice would you offer those individuals who've experienced a recent career change, or they've been laid off during the pandemic, as far as pursuing a new career or being reintroduced to the workforce? Anyone can go.
I think,
go ahead,
okay.
Jen.
Okay, so I think a lot of people have the misconception, because this is a woman panel, and I do not mean to alienate our male participant here. There is an empirical research to suggest that most of the guys believe they're a better investor than women. But the data will tell you over 70% of the United States household money is controlled by women. So I think there is some truth to it. I think if as an entrepreneur, one of the important skill is now is the time to really put the house in order, put a very close look at your working capital, put a microscope on your finance, and understand now you have to have an acute sense of allocating your resources in the most efficient and profitable way. I think this is something that I think the pandemic actually make us become a lot more disciplined in scrutinizing every single dollar we're going to spend. And I think, like all the other, you know, panelists were talking about, the crisis presents itself as an opportunity. It is up to us whether we can seize the moment and come out alive. So this is something that I want to add on in terms of the business skill.
Marta would add to that, to Dean Lee. You know, I think, you know, it's always tough to hear this, but because it's not a permanent thing, you know, it's an opportunity sometimes to kind of figure out new skill sets, different opportunities, things we always say we're wanting to try out new things. And although it feels sometimes, you know, that it's worse than it is, sometimes it can actually be, you know, a good thing to figure that out. And in the end, it's really not permanent. We'll come back and opportunities will be there.
Joanne?
I'd say now is probably a great time to reskill or to skill up. So if you've been thinking about either one of those things, even a little bit, and you've been laid off and you have a little bit of time, it's an excellent thing to do. I also think, I kind of spoke to this already, but I think most candidates who are out there, I think work from home and remote hiring is here to stay. And I know we're going to talk probably a little bit about that. But as a result, it means that you're competing with global talent. And so I do think that there's going to be a sense of like, you know, everyone's going to need to level up a little bit because, it's a greater pool of being able to compete with others, and companies being able to, those who are willing to embrace it are going to be able to hire from a lot of different places. And so reskilling, skilling up, obviously very beneficial. The other thing I'll just say from an entrepreneurial standpoint, if you've been like bouncing around that entrepreneurial idea, now's also a great time to like make your side hustle your main hustle until you figure out what's going to be going on.
All good suggestions. I would like to change the subject a little bit and talk about the new and up and coming professional. For those recent graduates that all of a sudden have come into this work environment, what suggestions would you offer to them?
I would, as the mother of a recently graduated student of this May, I would say I've spent a lot of time on this subject. One of the interesting things that I found is that generation, those 22-year-olds, you know, who are so digitally native, she and most of her friends were very resistant to the idea of networking. They connect socially, but when I say, well, you know, I know 10 people who I could send your resume to, she was like, but I don't know these people. And I'm like, yes, but they would do it because they know me and they would be willing to with you, and then you build a connection with them. And she felt very uncomfortable with this, like she's asking for someone to do something for her who she didn't know. And now 8 weeks later, she's taken the 9 people who I started with and turned them into like 50 people who introduced other people. And she started, you know, her emails, which started with, you know, she was like, Mom, how do I say thank you? It was like speak around. I'm like, no, you have to actually write an email and not text. This power of networking that young people don't really understand how important it is, and how there's no barriers. You can work with old, young, you know, all different types, and you need to really push the envelope in terms of who you network with, because you never know when you're going to find a connection that's going to help you or that you can help. And I think that's really my number one focus, is there's never too soon to start building your network.
Excellent advice. Anyone else?
Well, as a dean works with students from undergraduate and graduates, I have to say, give credit to this generational learner. They're born with a lot of technology. They're very tech savvy, and they're very adaptable, quick to acquire skill set in technology. And then also they have a very strong sense of the community, right? Like to Christine, we're talking about, oh, I don't want to just like ride on your coattail and get to an opportunity, but they have a very strong sense of equality, you know, equity among race and gender. It's a very strong generation of learner. They have a lot of good virtues. And I would say, advice still the same. You have to build your tolerance of uncertainties. You have to be quickly adaptable, have a mindset to understand in your career. You may change many times. Do not have a fixated on the idea that, oh, this is my job, I'm going to stay there for 5 years. Don't set limit for that. And try to seek out, like what Christine said, a strong network of advisor, mentors, supporter, right? Because this generation, while they create a strong sense of community, sometimes they're isolated by their technology, right? Oh, I have conversation with my friends. They don't have conversation with their friends. They text their friends, you know. An old time we pick up the phone and call people, have, you know, high tea or whatever you need to, meet at a favorite restaurant, you know, chef created. But this generation is very much in some way technologically isolated. So, but the pandemic opened our eyes to realize we are each other's habitat. It's not our kitchen, it's not our living room, it's a restaurant, it's a library. We go and see people, right? Excitement, creativity, innovation happen. And while technology can do a lot of things, I think the human congregation still means a lot.
Yeah. I'd love to add to this. Speaking of the young people coming out into any industry right now, if there's one thing that you have to have, and this kind of circles back to the first question with emotional, you know, that emotional roller coaster thing with entrepreneurship. It's almost like that for whoever's coming out of school nowadays. They're coming into this uncertain world. They don't have their footing yet. They're unsure about decisions. They don't know what the world's going to be like next week, let alone a week from now, a year from now, you know. But I have to say they need to build stamina to see the path, to have that, to see it go for give themselves a chance to succeed. Hiring people nowadays, I will tell you that it's very tough because they have one bad day or one bad week and they walk away, you know. And it's not just that they're closing the door on the current job that they're in, but they're closing the door on themselves and they don't realize that. So I would say get out of school, get a job, but really focus on having stamina, because that's betting on yourself. It's giving yourself a chance.
So
And
I
I'll-
also,
Go ahead, Melanie.
So I'll talk more maybe to the up and coming professional that's working right now and stuff like that, because I agree with everything everybody's saying. But one of the things that I think, you know, has helped, at least for me through all these years, is, you know, I've been through a number of downturns. You know, they're all unique in their own way. We've had 9/11, we've had 2008, we've had you know, and now COVID. And, you know, we learn a lot of lessons from each of these. And I would say to up, you know, kind of professionals that are out there to learn, to watch, to figure out, that's, you know, some of the best lessons you're going to ever learn are right now. And I would pay attention and I would make note of those, because there will be more throughout your career and you'll be better positioned. And I'll also tell you what else, everything after this is going to seem so much easier now. If you thought it was hard, it's not, right? It's going to be easy. So that's one of the benefits of it. But that's what I would say. I think that people that don't learn and don't pay attention during these times tend to be ones that falter when the next one comes around. So I think it's really important.
Yeah, got to embrace that growth mindset, right? Keep learning. I will also just quickly say something that's really benefited a lot of people in our program, something we advocate for here a lot and teach, is the average age of our program is 29. So these are most people who are career changers. And one of the biggest things, the way that we look at networking and job hunting is to treat it as a skill set. So being good at job hunting is the same as being good at playing piano, is the same as good at being coding. Like, it's a craft. You have to practice it to be good at it. And there's actually a really great podcast on, I can even put it in the chat, but Tribe of Mentors by Tim Ferriss. He had a guest, Debbie Millman, on there, and she's actually a visual artist. But when she joined his podcast at about the 20-minute mark, she talks for like 10 minutes about job hunting as a skill set and how to tackle it, and really looking at, like, what are you doing that other candidates are not doing, right? And that includes a whole list of things of what you could be doing compared to other candidates. But you'd be surprised, like, that people don't go the extra mile or don't have the stamina or don't have the persistence. And so it is good to, like, think about how you're approaching it. So I really highly recommend listening to that, thinking about it that way. It's been really beneficial, even for me personally.
So thank you very much for that feedback. I think now I'd like to shift a little bit to talking a little bit more about your business environment experience during this time of COVID. And for all of us, we realized the notion of being, as you started talking before, about being connected with each other. And in specific to your businesses, how have you all pivoted to remain connected and relevant to your clients and to the community at large? I think we all go through, fits and starts about what works and what doesn't. So what do you think has been successful, and where do you think some of the challenges still lie? Anybody who wants to start can do so.
Well, I'll start with the restaurant industry. It was a shocker. We've never heard of closing restaurants, shutting them down like that forcefully by the government. And really quickly, we had to pivot to a to-go. None of my restaurants are heavy on to-go. So all of a sudden it was like a light switch, turn it on, okay, let's pivot. And to be able to move your entire service to be like, okay, we have to create that same quality, what people are used to. And our price point is higher because we we buy expensive stuff to deliver to our guests. So we charge it at a higher price point. But how can that translate? How can the messaging still be the same in a to-go? In a to-go container? And so that we relied heavily on social media to be like, what wasn't canceled? Birthdays, anniversaries, special days were not canceled. So we're like, come celebrate. And that's just that human connection, to tie to what Christine said, was saying about, we do things, we buy things based on emotions. And that goes for everything in life. So, and you know what, that works. And it's something, it's not even like a gimmick. It's really just true. It works for every single thing that we do. We walk in through a door and we say good morning to somebody. That makes somebody's day better. You acknowledge that they existed. And in return, it makes your day better. You perform better. So it's the residual effects of what does work, what ticks. And day in, day out, we were doing to-goes and really firmly establishing our position through social media, which is how we connected and how we stayed relevant with our customer base, our fan base. And we thrived in the pandemic. We did very well, and people still celebrated with us. So I think that the human connection is still number one in whatever business that you're in.
Thank you.
I would add that this is really the first time that I've seen a crisis situation that, you know, I'm in the consulting business. We consult on crises all the time for clients. And this is the first time it affected us just as much as it affected those we were trying to counsel. And I think that's really, you know, what made a difference. Even with hurricanes, they're localized, you know, so you have our other offices picked up the slack, and most clients didn't even know if we were dealing with a hurricane at home. And this was really important for us to try and figure out that balance between how do we make sure we stay whole and protected. At the same time, we're trying to protect our client relationships. So that was really unusual. And I think, you know, what it came down to was a very simple plan, which was first to hug our employees. Second was to hug our clients, and three was to really know the numbers. And, you know, and I think part of that challenge meant changing the way we communicated. We had to increase the frequency of our communications to all of our target audiences by 10-fold. You know, we were doing daily updates at the very beginning. And also just making sure that all the audiences, whether they were vendors, not just customers, because if I can't get my supplies, my customers are going to be unhappy, were staying in touch with us. So we could telescope any of the impacts that were going to happen for our clients. And I also think, you know, with the employees, it meant being more than just morale boosters and, you know, is everyone okay? It meant making sure they had the equipment. Not everybody has a home office set up. We thought it would be, it's turned into 4 months. You know, it meant really thinking about how do we make sure everyone's productive. And then the last part of this challenge was, I think everyone was so focused on when is it going to be over? When is it going to be over? And everything sort of stopped. You can't hunting for business. You can't stop thinking about planning for tomorrow or waiting for this to end before you do your next proactive step, because otherwise you're going to be much lower the trough that you have to make up if you're not planning or still investing in growing your business.
So I can add a little bit. This question, no doubt, imply as a good leader, you always increase the frequency of contact, right? Like Chef was talking about, we're in the people's business. You need to create the connection because that's important. But this question itself actually make my heart ache. Think about it. Universities and higher education had gone through many years of not having, you know, public support. We have a lot of political pressure. It depends on which side you're on, or it really doesn't matter. And the student debt issue, the cut of state funding, and how do you go and assure your college? I have 11,000 students, probably, I don't know, 300 something faculty and staff. And every day you go in, this is a people organization. What can we do to preserve the integrity of the organization? And at times we have to stand up as cheerleader. We have to tell them, we're going to do everything right. We're going to do it together. This is a family. We're going to preserve each other as much as we can. And every day you have news on higher ed, who is going to furlough, who's going to lay off, who's going to be temporary, which one is going to be permanent. These are not good news for higher ed, right? We are in a space that everybody's telling us what to do, right? Parents want one thing, students want one thing, faculty and staff want another thing. We have tremendous risk in liability, but no organization can be operated with a riskless environment. But I do believe as educator, in this time, we need to take on the responsibility to tell a good story, to keep promoting why higher education is important for a developed economy. And whether you're going to go through vocational school or not, but undeniably education makes an economy. And that's one of the two most important factors to define a developed economy, right? The level of education of your population and the discretionary income. And without level of education, sometimes it's difficult to produce wealth of a nation. So I think the frequent communication to hold people together, make them stay honest on the course to achieve what we need to do as a mission or vision of a university or a business school. It's very important. And it requires intentional, deliberate communication with our constituency, and at the same time show empathy. And in the due course, if we do it right, we'll get empathy in return.
So in the business journal, we have kind of some unique challenges. You have the business side and the news side. So on the news side, obviously local businesses and people were clamoring for news. They wanted as much information as they can get. Now, they didn't want what we normally produce. They wanted news, what's going on here. So we had to really pivot very quickly. And there was no time to adjust to virtual, way of life, remote. Luckily, everything did go pretty smoothly. We had to kind of move very quickly. So communication on that side and staying connected to everybody. I mean, we all spent the first few weeks, we just calling everybody, trying to get a perspective. What's going on? What are you seeing? Because we needed to bring that, news to the community, to the readers. So on that side, it was a good thing in the sense that, numbers are up and things are like that, but it was a bit challenging to pivot very quickly on that. On the operations side, we had to, pivot over there too, obviously, like everybody else. We had to figure out, we have event business is a big business model for us, and we had to change all that to virtual. So that was quite a big challenge for especially the first few months, trying to figure that all out, get the platforms, the technology, everything everybody's saying. And I will agree that I think throughout all of it, the key is really communication and staying connected. I think in-house with your employees, with your team, with the community, with your suppliers, everybody. I think that was one of the most challenging, but yet most important things that we did to be able to transition as smooth as possible.
So I agree with everything that's been said. I think communication is paramount. For us, the biggest challenge was, similar to what a lot of educators are going through, which is pivoting to provide high quality online. So all of us have done some type of online, but to provide your core product, your core education and programming to make that remote in the amount of time that we did and many others did. I mean, that was definitely a challenge. I will say though, it was actually a fun challenge, and we were well positioned to go remote. I talked earlier about the silver lining. So for us, we had batted around the idea of providing remote live education for a long time. And thank you, COVID. It was like the push we needed to make it happen, because WinCode has always been so known for in-person. And now we have the largest and best enrollment numbers we've had to date. So, I mean, I will say that's been a huge positive for us. But an additional challenge that came with that is, even though we are teaching our same curriculum and the same structure of supporting people on, job support side, for example, we did need to revisit what are the core skills that we need across all our teams in order to really excel and do well and deliver the same outcomes, the same quality as we did before. So for us, we've spent a lot of time looking at core skills and how we execute. Another little thing, or not little thing, but I'll add to this, is the challenge for us went from, rather than just navigating like general P&L and cash flow analysis, we now have like 3 different scenarios of COVID cash flow, right? So that's also a challenge, is like constantly, some people love to be in the numbers all the time. I'm fortunate to have a co-founder and partner who loves to do that, because I love to be with the people. But it is, we are spending a lot of time looking at our cash flow, looking at our COVID cash flow scenarios, and making sure that we're good right now, and we're going to be good down the road.
So I couldn't have asked for a better straight person, because my next question was related to financial controls. I would be remiss if we're sitting here as an accounting firm not speaking to all of you about what types of financial controls have changed for you as a result of this pandemic. So Joanna, you mentioned the fact that your budgeting and your contingency planning is more frequent. Anybody want to comment to that, or do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I'll just quickly add that, our CFO has become extremely important in the company. And I do want to shout out Endeavor Miami. I'm really fortunate to be an Endeavor entrepreneur, and that's how we met Mark Durai, who's our CFO now, who's super experienced and is basically a master. So we have kind of like low, mid, high scenario of what's going to happen and where our cash flow is going to be at. So I think that's been the most important. We were also, we applied for PPP and that made a huge impact for us. So payroll protection. And that, you know, did go a long way in helping us keep our team and not furlough employees. So we're really happy about that. And now seeing the enrollment numbers, it did help us get through, you know, a dip to now start normalizing in the virtual world.
Excellent. Anybody else?
I know.
Oh, go ahead, Chef.
No, you go ahead.
One of the things that we did a little differently is, and I think this is very true of many organizations, is that financial controls tend to be top down. You know, someone looking at the budget says we're going to cut 10% from here, 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 and here. And one of the things that we did from day one was start bottom up. Everyone in the agency we did a Google Doc sheet and we put every expense on the sheet and we asked everyone, do we really need these things? You tell me what you really need to do your job. What can we cut? What can we eliminate? What can we delay? You know, what have we been meaning to buy that we didn't buy that if we had now, we could maybe do things better, faster. So I think using that, engaging the people who actually do the work day in and day out and helping you make those decisions. Within the first week, we had a reduction plan that took out about 20% of the expense of the out-of-pocket expense, because our biggest expense is still salary in the consulting business. But really looking at those expenses, and they've been monitoring those ever since it started. We have a little task force that's focused on making sure that that side of the business is as lean as it needs to be.
Excellent.
So if I could add to it, COVID has definitely taught us to where you're allocating funds, where you're allocating cash flow. So the question to what Christine just said, do we really need this? And I'll give you a real life scenario. We're in the process of opening up our new Chef Adrian's, and we're weeks away. It's the final stretch now, and we're putting together a wine list. And normally, under normal circumstances, you have an opening budget, and you're like, okay, let's buy a case of this or that, and you just have your target number, and you know that's in your budget and whatnot. I love, and then, you know, now because of COVID, we're like thankful to these purveyors and all that are working with us. Now you don't have to buy cases of wine. You can mix and match, and spirits, you know. So now it's like creative. The creative side has to come out. And so do we really need tons of cases of wine? No. So now our budget is cut by half. So it's allocating funds strategically. We all have to be strategic into whatever business that we're in. And if you do a good job at being strategic, the end result will be successful.
So to Chef Adrian's point, when we did the business journal, we have 44 business journals and we have a 5-year strategic plan. We were very careful. Any expenses or things that we looked at cutting and stuff did not cut into anything that was part of the strategic plan. So we really kept a very close eye on what our goals are and where we're trying to accomplish. And if it wasn't part of that, we looked at, you know, where the expense controls could happen there.
So I want to add on to the discussion about strategic asset allocation and working capital management, right? In the finance side, it's very simple, right? You have cost and you have revenue. And right. I want to make sure that everybody knows, these entrepreneurs already know, right? Not every single dollar is created equal. Not every single project is created equal. So while we all kind of retreat and be conservative and cut costs and so, but there are opportunities that presented itself that you need to strategically maybe double up on some investment that can propel you and pivot you into a bigger generation of revenue. So that is the time to really think of finance as a very important tool when you are in a crisis. So I will say not only conservatively conserving your cash is a good way to go, but really think of your cash and as an instrument to sustain and propel you. Let me put it this way. So because if you think about the environment, we're all subject in the same environment. So who's the one going to come out and use the dollar strategically, like what Chef Adrian was talking about, Melanie was talking about? It's going to be the winner, right? Yeah. So I think that's important to challenge the thought of cutting across the board. Don't think about that.
So I would like to have, we've got time for one more question amongst all the panelists. And so I guess I'd like to leave all of our participants with your one best thought that any of our participants should take away from today, from your personal perspectives of how they should operate going forward in this environment?
I'll go. I would say, and this may sound harsh, but this is a time when you have to really eliminate mediocrity. Do not accept anything except the best from your staff, from your tools that you pay for, from your vendors. You know, very often it's easy to just say, well, this is good enough. And this is the time when good enough is not good enough. And you have to really make sure everything you're doing is delivering 110%.
I would add on to that. I kind of agree with that. I think this is a time where you have to really be resilient. You have to be fight for what you want. And, you know, it reminds me of my CEO would say, you know, the whole thing reminds me of, are we there yet? You know, when the kids in the car are always going, are we there yet? And your answer is no, but it's going to be a while. Well, this is going to be a while. And I think it's really important. I love South Florida because we have the most resilient people here. And if there's a will and there's a way to get successful and figure it out, South Florida will find it. So I would leave it that can-do attitude, that ability to adapt, figure things out, be innovative and nimble are all really crucial during this time. And any time. But.
So I will add to honor your core, commit to your vision and mission, strategies about choosing what not to do. So figure a way to finish your journey strong.
Yeah, I would like to add my mantra, it's my foundation, make it count. So, and I say this every day, you could either choose to look at all the bad that's happening in the world, and you can choose to be like, entrepreneurship is like a very bleak, uncertain way to go and maybe not the right choice at the time. But if you focus and you stay the course and you stay committed, we will come out the other side winning. So yeah, that's it, make it count.
So much great advice here. So what I will add, which I was talking a lot about yesterday with some fellow entrepreneurs, is indecision is a decision. So make a plan and make a few of them and know what triggers are going to set off which plans, and then see those plans through and be open. And here in the Win Code Walls is something that we really try to subscribe to through everything, which is to never stop learning. So try to see everything, try to see these challenges as an opportunity to grow. It's all about how we frame it and what you do with that reframing and the new knowledge and the new experience.
Great. I'm sorry. Did anybody else want to say anything? I didn't want to cut anybody off. So we have one last poll question that we have to go through so that everybody can get their CPE. We want to know how you thought about the seminar. Was it informative? And if there were things that were left uncovered from your perspective, please send us that feedback, because we'd be happy to put on another webinar to come back and talk to you.
Full in progress.
So as you're completing that poll, on behalf of all of us, we want to thank you for spending the hour with us. I think you got a tremendous amount of very, very valuable advice and a lot of enthusiastic things that if you walked away and heard the presentation again, which I intend to do, I plan to reflect on some of them, because I think you all came with great ideas for us, and we really thank you for that on behalf of the network. And there you have it. So for the person that said there was something left uncovered, let us know, because we'd be happy to come back and talk with you about it. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you so much.
We'll be making available a recording of today's program, which you'll receive through your emails. Have a wonderful rest of the day.